Hello, and welcome to episode 45 of the West Aurora 129 podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Smith, Superintendent, and I'm pleased to bring you another insightful conversation in this season's series highlighting the leaders within our district. In today's episode, we have two leaders who will explore their shared experiences, their relationships with students, families, and staff, and how they bring leadership to life in their schools. Today, we're shining a light on Hope D. Wall School, a place dedicated to serving students with unique learning needs, named after Hope D. Wall, a local pioneer in special education. The West and East Aurora school districts came together to establish a public school in her name in 1969, continuing her mission of inclusion and opportunity. Carrying that legacy forward today is Principal Kelly Pearson. Thanks, Kelly, for joining us. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good to see you. From one transformative learning environment to another, we now turn our focus to the district's youngest learners at the Early Learning Academy, formerly known as the Todd Early Childhood Center. The school was relocated and renamed in 2019. Since 2011, Principal Dr. Laurie Klomhaus has led this incredible work, guiding a team dedicated to early childhood education. Today, the Early Learning Academy serves 416 students while also reaching families through outreach programs like Parents as Teachers, bringing education into homes and strengthening early childhood development. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Klomhaus.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. It's great to be here.
It's always good to see you, Dr. Klomhaus. And I would be remiss if by the time this podcast airs, we did not mention that, Mrs. Person, you have something pretty exciting coming up. You will have defended your dissertation, huh?
2 days.
Wow.
2 days and I'm done.
No pressure. That's right.
No, I'm really excited. It's been a journey, but I finished in 3 years and I'm proud. It's going to be
awesome.
over.
Hey, you should be.
At 3:01 Thursday.
All right.
2:27. We're done.
All right. We will be ready to celebrate with you.
Thank
Congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
Speaking of transitions and things that have happened in our lives, Kelly, before you transitioned to Hope Wall, the two of you worked together as an administrative team. Mm-hmm. And reflecting on that time as principal and assistant principal, what's something you learned from each other that continues to influence how you lead today? Who wants to go first?
You go, Kelly.
All right. I was brand new to being an administrator when I started working with Laurie in 2015. And I was the assistant principal between two buildings, so I had the opportunity to learn a lot from a lot of different people. But early on in our leadership journey, we had done an assessment that kind of told us about what our strengths were in different areas. And Laurie and I literally had the exact opposite strengths. So the two that were mine were not hers and vice versa. So I believe what I learned from her was a lot about just learning how to be a leader, period. But Laurie's people side of the work was really huge for me. It wasn't that those weren't my strengths or that I was not good with people, but it wasn't my first go-to.
Sure.
And so learning how she cared for people, just acknowledging what may seem like simple things in people's lives, brings so much more buy-in to the work that we do, and really honoring that family side of the work and just seeing that there's just so much more going on than the system and structure.
That's good.
And so I feel like I learned so much about the people side of the work, caring for people, acknowledging people, and that's something she is fabulous at that I didn't have yet, but
Awesome.
I feel like I do now.
I love it. Dr. Klomhaus, what about you? What do you think?
Wow. So most of my background was elementary. And so when I came into the preschool world in 2011, it was pretty difficult for me. And I did not have Kelly at the time. I had no AP. And it was just me kind of looking at all the experts in the building, show me, tell me, and when Kelly got there in 2015, I just was amazed by her ability to understand child development in a different way than I understood it from an elementary perspective. She could see that child development in children that were struggling in certain areas that I just didn't have that background. I didn't have that experience. She showed me so much about how to work with kids that, for example, just had never been to school before and were separating from their parents. Use of visuals, strategies, differentiation in so many areas that I just didn't have the chance to practice. I remember saying, I just feel so like uneducated, but she didn't take it like that. She just took me by the hand and she just showed me, and she did it with me. And I was never made to feel lesser than. To this day, that is why I am the principal I am in preschool, because of Kelly Pearson.
Well, thank you. That's very nice.
That's awesome. And as a team, the two of you definitely demonstrated what shared leadership looked like. And as you pointed out, Kelly, you led in different ways, but together you led effectively.
Yeah, and I think the people side of her work never made me feel like her assistant.
Yes.
We never had that relationship.
That's
it
good.
wasn't like Laurie knows, then Kelly knows. So I was always a shared partnership. We dealt with the same things. It wasn't, this is your role, this is my role, this was our role.
Sure.
And so that's I think why we worked so well together.
That's awesome. Now, specifically speaking of working together and working with families, with the populations that you serve, family engagement plays a crucial role in the student success that you work with, particularly at the Early Learning Academy in Hopewell. How do you encourage and strengthen family partnerships in your school communities? Laura, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll start that off. So when we're starting with brand new parents to the district. It's really important for us to make sure that they feel encouraged, strengthened, and empowered by the experience, because it's the first time in this district, and they're scared. I'm a parent myself. I have 3 adult children. All growing up in the same house. 2 went off to preschool just fine, and one of them clung to my leg every day, screaming at the top of her lungs. And I still remember that. I remember taking the wheel and driving to work and crying. And so I know how it feels when a parent walks up and that child just will not detach.
Sure.
And so it's our job in preschool to make sure those parents feel reassured that we are their safekeepers. We're there to love them, nurture them, but give them that routine to come back. A few other things I wanted to mention is, other than that, than really just setting that foundation for them, is the programs that we provide. We have packed parent and child together time where parents can come to school, involve with, do things with their children. We have parent cafes where parents can get together and just really talk about those issues of feeling isolated and alone raising kids. It's a hard job. And we have I can't forget my Birth to 3 program. Oh my gosh. We have quite a huge Birth to 3 program, home visitors, play groups, group connections where families can come together and, again, make those friendships and connect with other families that are experiencing the same struggles as they are. So I feel, and ESL classes. We're looking at, we partnered with Wabansi to make sure that our parents that speak different languages can start to learn the language of English also.
I love it.
I feel like we have a lot going on for our families.
Doing a couple things.
Just a few.
Just a couple. How about Hopewell?
So Hopewell is a unique environment in that currently we serve students ages 3 all the way through 22. So it is possible that some of our students have spent 15 years in Hopewell.
Sure.
So what's critical to understand from the lens of the family is, for many, Hopewell is their second home. Their only place where they feel just as comfortable at home as they do elsewhere. So our relationships with families run really deep, because it's not a year in and a year out. Some kids have been there since they were 3 years old. Wow. And the partnerships and relationships they develop with staff members is really profound, from a very different lens than I've seen any other place I've worked, only because that person can be your guide through situations that they may not understand.
Sure.
And ultimately, sometimes for our families, the only place their child can access outside of the home is school. And so we try to take on some of those roles in guiding our students into the community, taking them out and giving them exposure that sometimes their families can't do. Those other partnerships are ensuring that those families are with us whenever their child has those really important meetings, and walking them through the life of being a parent with a student with special needs as they get ready to exit. What does life look like after I turn 22 years old? Because there needs to be connection to community resources. There needs to be connections to adult programs. programming or just what the goals are for the family in general. So the ultimate relationship just looks very different. Some of those offerings, we've tried parent coffees, things like that. Our families just need so much more of an individualized approach that partnership through our social workers, access to resources is really critical. And our teachers walk them through that starting when they turn 14 years old. How are we transitioning you to that next phase? And Hope Wall is just a home for them. And so it's really difficult to walk them through sometimes, but it's comforting at the same time.
Thank you for sharing that. And specifically, a lot of times those that are exposed or hear about your programs don't understand that we're not just rolling out the crayons and having a good time. There are specific measurements that we look to identify and track our students' progress as they move through our systems. Can you talk a little bit? I know that you could talk about this for days, but if you're going to highlight just a couple targets that we identify for students at Hope Wall and then conversely at ELA, just to send the message that there's an intentionality with regard to the fact that they're part of a school system.
Yeah. And I think, on first look, it could look like it's a different approach, but it isn't. For both environments, I think, and Laurie can add to this, we are really speaking about child development from meeting the child where they are. That could be 6 months development. That could be grade level. That could be 8 years old and they're 15 years old. We are looking at where is this child functioning today from a developmental level, and how do I provide strategies, supports, robust instruction to get them to the next piece. And so for us as a building, we've really been focusing on our understanding of high leverage math concepts for learners. And this is what all kids are learning in math, and really being able to assess where our kids are. So from the lens of looking at those moments where we're seeing progress, it's about taking what may look like small steps, but they're really big steps within development to get kids to where they are. And that's just something that I think both environments, we base all of our work on that. It isn't so much of a lockstep curriculum exposure as much as it is meeting students where they are and progressing them little by little.
Sure. And I know at ELA, there are some specific measurements that the teachers do use to track progress, because you have to report that out, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. So we have, I would say, their ranges of learning, and the teachers really are intentional in their practice in the classroom to take evidence, and evidence is a big word for just photographs or videos or anecdotal notes that they take on children and the progress they're making. Depends on the child, 14 to 16 objectives. And like Kelly said, we start where that child is, and we want growth. That's what we want. Now, how much growth they make, it depends on the child and where they're at, but also on our intentional planning. And so growth for a child, for some children, may be that they're able to enter the school without clinging to their parent and get to their classroom. And that is huge. And growth for another child may be they're subitizing up to 5, which means that they can look at 5 objects and say, there's 5. It's very diverse, immense. It's a lot of work, but that's what we're in it for.
And those are the same things that I brought actually the work I was doing at ELA over to Hope Wall, because we needed a way to measure development from sometimes infancy development all the way through the age of 22. And so we've really been working on focusing on math and first receptive understanding of language. And 89% of our students from September till February made the expected growth target set for them. And we are just seeing profound growth. I have students telling me when I walk into class, what are you doing? Saying that they are subitizing. So you mentioned subitizing. And I see teachers standing up there, look at how many people wore boots today. And students saying, 2, I know that it's subitizing. So really being intentional about where kids are and providing that personalized instruction. And that's very similar between both schools, that I think it's not just about the IEP goals. We have to look at we look at the whole child in both settings. And I think that's what keeps both of them pretty unique, but similar.
So a benefit that I have in the role of superintendent is that I get to go all over the school district, see our wonderful teachers and staff, and really celebrate all of the individuals who've raised their hand to say, I want to be a part of West Aurora School District 129. But I would be remiss if I didn't note it takes a unique person to say, I want to work with 2 and 3 year olds or 3 and 4 year olds. I want to work with students at Hope Wall. What do you do to support and develop the teachers and staff so that they feel empowered every day? Because education's hard, but you work in environments that have some additional challenges. So how do you look to support your teachers? What are a couple things that you do and staff?
Well, and my staff, if they do listen to this, they will know that I've said many times, I'm never going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't do. So we change diapers all the time. I change diapers, not as much as they do, but there are still children learning in diapers. If that's what I walk into a classroom and that's what they need from me, that's what I do. I think that being a principal, yeah, okay, there's paperwork and there's phone calls, but it's more about the nitty-gritty of what does my staff need and at that time, and what can I give to them? Maybe it's giving them a break because it's a really stressful day with a bunch of 3-year-olds that are new, that are all crying because their mommy and daddies are at home and they don't understand.
Sure.
It's whatever. And I feel that me just being there and walking in and saying, what do you need, is helpful for them.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kelly, what do you think?
I feel like being present and visible and going into rooms and seeing what they're experiencing and really understanding the days in and the days out. And sometimes when you're in the throes of the work, you don't see the progress that your kids are making. I remember being a teacher and having a sub come in and be like, look at your kids now. And I'm like, what? They're not doing anything different. So sometimes teachers will get in, am I doing what's right? Are they making the growth? And to come in and sit and say, did you just see what he did that he was not doing 3 months ago? And providing them that feedback in the moment to say, you're doing great things. As embarrassing as it may be for me to video you teaching this lesson, you need to see how beautiful you're doing for students. So I think it's about giving them that feedback, letting them know, but also teaching teachers how to take care of themselves. That is a critical piece because burnout is real in these types of environments, any education. And if you don't just learn a journaling strategy, how about writing someone a note to lift them up today?
Sure.
That's something that we've really worked hard on, and living to our values and just reminding people of why we do the work. And to Laurie's point, that modeling, making sure that if I say something will work, then I'll do it too. And when I come to your room and you need help, if that means you're leaving and I'm taking it, then that's what we're doing.
So and I love that, what you've said about how you're showing up, not just waiting for folks to come to you in your office, you're getting out of your offices and you're going to them to see the perspective of instruction from their lens. That's awesome. And connected to that type of thinking, a leader knows they can't do it by themselves. We need people, those that we work with, partners in the journey to grow and develop, which then exposes them to opportunities to be leaders. How do you work with your staff to empower them to lead you at times? Are there strategies? Are there teams that you have? What is it that you do to support leadership growth and development amongst your staff?
Teamwork is very important to me, and it's something I spent a lot of time trying to study and learn adult learning and how to get people on the same page. And so last year when I started at Hope Wall, I had the opportunity to meet my building leadership team that was already in place. Why was I going to change it? I didn't know what was working or not. So to bring them into the fold and really ask them to think critically about where we are, who are we as a building, and where do we need to start this process, and letting their voices be the guide, because I could have made a decision to start somewhere that was going to be a complete miss. And that's not really the role of a leader, is to come in and just start taking over. It's to try to find where we are and make us take the next most appropriate step. And so that team really helped me to understand we had to define who is Hope Wall and what do we believe in. And once we did that, now we can start talking about where are our kids and what do they need to do next.
That's good.
So I really lean on that building leadership team to take the temperature on things when decisions don't seem to be working or we're struggling with the process. Go back to the teams you're responsible for, bring the feedback, and let's toss it out, because it ends up being that we gather some unique ideas. So that team is critical in really helping guide, because while I could make decisions, they could fall on their face if it's not something collectively that we need to do.
That's awesome. Thank you. Laurie.
Well, I'll piggyback on that as teamwork and listening to that team, but also at the same time, like, there's no room for ego. So I know my limitations, and it would just be ridiculous of me not to listen to the smart people I have around me, and I have so many. Also, you can't be like afraid. I have a couple people that are my go-tos that will tell me the hard truths in a loving way. Sometimes they've been frustrated with me, and that's okay. Like, it's been done in a respectful way. Say, Laurie, this is not working. And you got to be able as a leader to sit there and say, okay, tell me why, and listen. And really, really listen.
Absolutely.
Not just like, okay, I'm listening to you and I'm just going to ignore you and go on and do the same thing. Because I try to always frame it from that viewpoint. What they're telling me, is it best for kids? Because if it's best for kids, and it's not because of adult preference, but if it's best for kids, then I better listen to it and we better rethink something.
That's awesome. And speaking of empowering or working with teammates, all of the roles in your respective schools are important. But one that we wanted to highlight was the role of the paraprofessional, both at Hopewell and ELA. They're pivotal in order to see the success that we do. What can you tell us about the impact that these unsung heroes play in your classrooms?
I don't know where to start, but I have over 50 paraprofessionals at Hopewell. As a classroom teacher, I had as many as 4. And what I always told people without uncertainty was that they were the right, the left hand, the octopus arms that we need when we're teaching in the classroom. And they see so much more and work so much more closely with students than we do as the classroom teachers. There is no way the work could be done without the paraprofessionals. They have a lens of care and compassion and dignity that they provide to students that goes above and beyond any measure.
Sure.
They are supporting students from lens of self-care all the way through their academic needs. And without question, they go where they need to go. They support where they need to support. And they are teachers. And I think that that's really important to make sure that we keep that in mind. Just like I spoke about Laurie and I's partnership, that needs to be the same way we approach paraprofessionals in the classroom. Yes, there's a teacher. Yes, there's paraprofessionals, but they are a team. And ideally, when you walk into a classroom, you shouldn't be able to tell who's in charge. And sometimes that means looking at 5 adults and trying to figure out who's the teacher here. You should be able to not tell, because that's a crystal clear evidence that that place is operating as a team. And I'm watching my paraprofessionals learn about math and carrying around manipulatives and using 10 frames. And I'm watching their teachers do the same thing. So it's critical. There isn't enough you can say about their role. The school could not function if they were not there.
That's good.
My gosh, she said it all so well, and she took my line. So my standard is, especially when we're audited by the state, because we're a grant-funded program, that whoever that auditor goes in there, they should not be able to tell who the teacher is. We have worked really hard with our paraprofessional group. I have 28 paraprofessionals. They are the backbone, and I'm not taking away from teachers. I was a teacher. But my teachers would agree with me. They could not do this work without our paraprofessionals. They are the backbone of our building, of our programs for our kids. And they do as much teaching from direction of the teacher in that classroom. And there's many times that I've gone in with someone and they say to me, I don't know who the teacher is.
Sure.
Good. I'm glad.
That's awesome.
I'm glad.
That's awesome. So as a final general question, I will say this year our leadership team has been exploring the concept of ownership, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like in action. And as building leaders, how do you define ownership and how do you foster it within your school environment?
You want to go first so I don't take your answers?
It's your team.
We do think alike. Some days it's harder than other days to just like I love my work. I'll always love my work. I always wanted to be a teacher, but that doesn't mean every day you get up out of bed and you're just like, here we go. I'm the principal today. I'm so excited. I have my tired days too. I have my down days, but it's important to go there and remember that, no, this is my calling. And so I have to be up front and center, and I have to be ready to do all those things, be that encourager for others, be there for kids, greet them when they come in the door. So staff see me that I'm about and I'm present, and that I am not the boss of the building, but I take ownership in what is going on in that building, and I care. I care about them, and I care about the kids, and I care about what's happening.
Thank you. Well said. Kelly, what do you think?
So I was connecting. I've always felt this way, and then you said it in your video that you put out about the foundation. And I last year was really tasked with this idea of owning the concept of pouring the foundation for what the building needs to have in place. That might be systems, that might be structures, whatever it needed to be to allow teachers, paraprofessionals, related service to do their job. When that foundation was poured, it allowed everybody to breathe and begin to do the work they needed to do without wondering what was coming next. And then I think the next job is to start to put the walls up. And that's what we've started to do, is to figure out as a team, how do we own what's happening within this foundation that we've built?
That's good.
And along that time will come to more things. But I believe, my job as a leader is to own that I'm ultimately responsible for modeling what I expect to see from others. And so being trusting, reliable, and accountable ultimately relies on me to model that for others. Because if I don't hold myself to that standard, I can't expect them to. And if they don't know how to operate within our system so that they can do their work, that ultimately would fall back on me for not putting those things in place. So I know it's not all about me making the decisions all the time, but I think it is up to us to set the tone. And I think we get what we model. And I'm seeing that happening pretty frequently.
Well said. Now, I did say that was the last formal question. So this is what we're going to call rapid fire.
All right.
I'm going to start with you, Laurie. Can't think about it. Just give me the answer.
Jeez.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
Oh, night owl.
Books or movies?
Books.
All right, Kelly, your turn. Sweet or savory snacks?
Savory.
Ooh. Favorite season of the year?
Summer.
Dogs or cats?
Dog.
That was with some conviction.
See, and
Dog.
I'm a cat person.
And there you go.
See, there you go. We're opposite.
And
I love it.
And I wouldn't read the book either. I'd watch the
There
movie.
you go. There you go. I love it.
But I would not drink the tea.
And I'd want the sweet.
Okay.
I am serious.
I would not drink the tea.
Okay, before I have to come in between you two. Come on now. I will say, as we look to close, I don't know if you remember, Laurie, when I was about to start in this role, you picked up the phone and you called me, and I won't go into great detail, but you more or less said, when you become superintendent, I would hope that you continue to do blank that you have done for me. So that whole statement of accountability you did for me, and I did not forget that conversation, and I hope I have been able to carry that suggestion into this role. But I wanted to make sure I highlighted that. Kelly, Laurie, thank you both for sharing your experiences, the passion you bring to your schools each day. Your leadership at Hopewell and the Early Learning Academy is certainly making an impact on students, families, and staff alike. We appreciate your dedication and all that you do to create supportive, enriching learning environments. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the West Aurora 129 podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, or the TuneIn Radio app. I would encourage you to subscribe to our broadcast and stay tuned for next month's episodes featuring the principals of Freeman and Hall Elementaries. Have a great day.